Hi folks, and welcome back to the shack, and another project as usual. This time I've been messing around with this transceiver that I've built. So some of you might know that I'm quite into CW, and I also do a lot of homebrew. So what I thought I would make is something in the spirit of vintage radio. So it's got to be valves, transceiver, probably a bit QRP. And what I've come up with is this all valve transceiver, and it's actually quite good. I've had a couple of QSOs with it. I mean, it's obviously you know, you're not going to get too much with it on 10 watts, which is what it puts out. And the other thing I've designed it for is 80 meters, so it's really designed for sort of contacts locally around the UK. Anyway, what I'm going to do is quickly show you it, and I'll also show you some of the details of the circuits that we use for this. Right, so this rig that I've built, you can really regard it as a separate receiver and transmitter in one. And what I'll do is I'll just go through what we've got. Now, when we're building homebrew equipment, receivers are always a lot more complicated to build than transmitters. And one of the problems that we have is trying to find a circuit that's not too complicated, that has reasonable performance and reasonable selectivity and sensitivity, especially for CW, which is obviously what the transmitter's designed for. Now, this circuit came from one of the old ARRL books, I think 1965, 42nd edition, I think it was. And this is a reasonable compromise. It was described as the Super X Super Het, and it is a sort of simple Super Het receiver. So it's a little bit more complicated than a TRF, and it gives reasonable performance actually. So what I've done is use this circuit and modified it slightly to my own specifications, which is obviously it's going to work on 80 meters. So what we've got here, this is the front end, this is the RF amplifier and the mixer. So you've got a tuned circuit there, which I've changed, because originally this was designed to cover 3 to 7 megs, and I only want a very small portion of the band, so I've changed that to a simple tuned circuit to cover 80 meters. And this is the local oscillator, which is tuned for 5.2 to about 5.5 megs, again for the purpose I've used. And then the detector, which is used as another 6U8A, is preceded by a IF filter using a crystal. I was lucky to have one of those 1700 kilocycle crystals in my junk box, so we were quite lucky with that. And then this valve is obviously a tetrode triode in one envelope, so the BFO comes from the triode section, and then a 6CG7 double triode for the audio amplifier. And you could use, I suppose, an ECC82 or something like that, but I tried to stick to the original circuit. The power supply is straightforward, but we're not using that. We're going to use one of those Chinese inverters again, and using the 220 tapping from the Chinese inverter and voltage doubling that, so we can use 220 volts for the receiver and for the driver or the oscillator of the transmitter, and then we will use the doubled voltage for the HT for the PA, which I will show you in a minute. So for the transmitter, some of you home brewers might have already seen this circuit on the internet. It sort of comes up quite quickly when you put 807 transmitter or something like that into Google. But it's quite a standard circuit actually. I don't know which, I can't remember which chap actually put this up, so I can't credit him. But it's on the internet, and it's a very straightforward master oscillator PA transmitter, a mopper, I think that's what they call it. So the oscillator here is a 6AG7, which is what I'm using, and I'm using the values that they put on there. It does work actually. It seems to work pretty well. So you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it, as they say. The other section I'm using, for the PA, we're using an 837, not an 807. And you might ask, why use an 837 rather than an 807? Well, an 837 is actually a pentode, and it's quite a neat valve. I had a couple of them spare in the junk box from something else, and I decided that an 837 would work quite well. And I think, to be honest with you, when you look at the HT values, you're probably not going to get much more out of an 807 with the HT voltages that I'm using for this. So what else can I tell you about this circuit? The only differences that I'm doing that they're not showing here is that I'm not keying the cathodes of the oscillator and the PA. I've chosen to keep them grounded, but I will be keying the HT. Some people say that if you key the HT, you get a better keying envelope, and certainly with this one, it doesn't sound too bad actually. I certainly haven't got any problems with key clicks or chirp or anything like that. It sounds really good, and obviously being a crystal, it sort of stays smack bang on frequency. So that's what I've done. Anyway, we'll have a quick look at the rig, and I'll show you where everything is and what it more or less looks like in reality. So just looking at the front panel, I've tried to sort of set everything out fairly ergonomically, as they say. So just going through a few things. The speaker, that's the main tuning for the receiver, fine tuning for the receiver, and then here we've got the controls for the transmitter, tuning and loading for the tank coil, and a few other knobs down there for the receiver, the BFO tune, the regeneration control. In the original circuit diagram, actually, or in the original article, they said that you should actually put the regeneration control as a sort of fixed trimming pot, so to speak, and you know, set it and don't fiddle with it. I mean, I thought about doing that, but I thought, well, I do listen to AM sometimes, so I thought I would put that on the front panel, so that's something to think about. So you got volume, that's my transmit receive button, and that's for spotting, so that will just key the oscillator, and then you can see where you are on the band. And we've got a crystal. I've currently got this for 3.560 kilohertz, so that's the sort of QRP frequency on 80 meters. And I've had a few QSOs with this actually, and but I'm having to use, I will admit, the receiver is hard work on CW. The local oscillator does drift slightly. It's certainly nothing like the old Trio, and it is hard work. You know, you're forever having to adjust the tuning. It's not so bad on SSB or AM, where obviously you've got a bigger bandwidth, but on CW, you know, any slight drift in the local oscillator and you know, you've lost the station you're trying to listen to. So again, this is a problem with, you know, simple tube receivers, especially homebrew ones. But anyway, we'll suck it and see how we get on with it, so to speak. Right, just to look at the top part. So that's the Chinese power supply, and then we've got all three valves and the speaker there for the receiver section. And then moving over to the transmitter section here, we've got the tank coil and the tuning capacitors, and then there's the 837 and the 6AG7, and you've got the aerial changeover relay there. So it's all quite standard, as they say.
I travelled a lot for my job, and I was away from home more than 6 months to begin.
The performance of this really depends on how strong the station is. So if you've got a really strong station, then it comes through a lot better.
You said about 80 metres couldn't go bad. I came on here from natural wave or whatever. What? T0 SDN. G3SVD.
G3SVD, G0 NDM returning. Yeah, thank you, Andy. I think 80 metres is the matter, isn't it? Because it's into it. On the... I think that was fairly demanding. At the moment, it's I go down to Blandford Camp sometimes.
So that gives a pretty good demonstration of the receiver listening to receiving SSB. I've just been down to the CW end of the band, but there's not really an awful lot happening down there, so we'll try it a bit later and see what happens. What I'm going to do is see if we can get a QSO, but I think I'm going to try and use like the other receiver to listen on. The Homebrew receiver on the transceiver is actually as mentioned, it is quite difficult to receive CW unless there's a really strong signal, and I think it's going to be easier for the demonstration just to show the QSO with the Trio R1000 receiver. Anyway, we'll see how we get along. Okay, we seem to have got somebody. Good afternoon. Oh man. Many thanks for call. Five 8 9. Name Justin. QTH. So how copy. Good afternoon, Justin. Thanks for the report from Swansea. Five 8 9. Deep QSB. Phil. It's in Chester. back to you. The keying on this rig is actually not too bad. Keying the HT via relay, so it sounds pretty good, as you can hear. I'll have a quick QSO, I won't stay on too long with this chap. Phil. Let's give it a go. Solid copy, Phil. Many thanks for from Chester. Using Homebrew with all valves, power, watts, antenna is Phil won't hold it as QSB bit of S73s for nice goodbye and good luck. Conditions rubbish. I was using a TS 940 and a doublet. Take care and goodbye. So that's quite an interesting short QSO just to demonstrate this rig, and as you can see, it The transmitter works very well. It keys nicely. It gives 10 watts, and obviously with the crystal, it stays where it is. But the receiver, well, for CW, it's pretty difficult. And I think if the band's quiet and conditions are good, and you've got a nice strong signal, I think it'll be okay. I did actually listen to a German station when I tested this first, and when I was having a QSO, and I could actually copy him, though you do have to keep adjusting it. But certainly the commercial receiver certainly helps. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope to see you all again soon.